Anatomy of a chair. Let's look at how components work. I modeled this chair in SketchUp. It has legs, a seat, and a back with sides. The back and the slats as well as the seat base are just faces and edges. The legs are components that are mirrored, so that any changes to any happen in a mirrored way. The seat cushion is a group so that it can be easily painted separate from the rest of the chair. My chair sits on the ground plane. All SketchUp files have a single origin. The origin of the file is shown where the red and green and blue axes intersect. The origin point of a file is the initial insertion point when imported into another model. I saved my chair file, call it Chair01. Now it can be imported into any other SketchUp file. Here is a model of a kitchen with a table that needs chairs around it. To import the chair I made, I select File, Import, and the Chair01 and select it. Notice that the chair comes in attached to my cursor by its own origin point. It looks like when I modeled the chair I didn't pay attention to the origin. I can move it around and position it, but when I double-click to edit the chair, the bounding box is way outside the chair elements. I open the Chair01 file and select and move the chair parts to be over the origin. Now I save as and call it Chair02. As I import Chair02, it comes in just like I had planned, except the bounding box is still far bigger than the chair. Why is that? Let's go back to the Chair02 file and examine it. First, check the layers and make sure they are all on. And they are. There's only one. Then turn on View Hidden Geometry to see if there are any stray elements. And indeed there are. I'll zoom in. This is the arc path that I used with Follow Me to model the back horizontal slats. I didn't want to throw it away in case I want to change the chair in the future, so I hid the arc. Let's go back to the Chair01 file and turn on all the geometry. Sure enough, there is the hidden arc path. Now I can select everything before I move it to the origin. Select everything and move it to the origin again. Save the file. This time I'll name it Chair03. Now switch back to the kitchen and import Chair03. It behaves like I want, and its bounding box is tight to the geometry. So far, so good. I have a dark colored chair in the file. In the component browser, I find the dark chair. Let me try swapping my new Chair03 with the dark chair. I right-click over it and select Replace Selected. It's pretty close, but the chair is rotated 90 degrees. I double-click on the dark chair and take note of how it is oriented to its origin. The chair faces south relative to a plan view of the red-green plane. When you're developing a series of product components, you should anticipate people swapping them one for another. Be consistent in your orientation of elements relative to their red and green axes, and they will swap perfectly. Okay, so let's open up Chair03 and select all the geometry, including the hidden stuff, and rotate it 90 degrees, making sure the chair faces down on the plan view. I file, save as, and name it Chair04. Go back to the kitchen and File, Import Chair04. Place it here and spin it around. Now let's swap it for a dark chair. Replace Selected. Works perfectly. Let me swap it back again. Let's place 4 chairs around the table. I can swap them all as a set for a dark chair. And swap them back again. The consistent origin point keeps them all at the table correctly. Hold down the Alt key while in the Paint Bucket tool to eyedropper select the wood grain texture on the leg of the table, and click the paint onto the chair components. Use the Apple Command key with the Paint Bucket on the Mac. Sample a different color and paint another 2 chairs. The designer, me, has not had to do any component editing to accomplish the changes in color style to the chairs and the design. To change the cushions, there's only one double click to edit the component and paint the cushion. This is called nesting of groups and components. Each time you embed a group or component inside of another group or component, it creates one nesting level and requires the designer to double-click at each nesting level to reach the geometry within that level. For this reason, you want to limit the nesting levels within a product content model. This will encourage designers to use your models and not get frustrated with tedious editing steps. Now edit the chair, Chair 04. Let's review. All the parts of the chair are on one layer, layer 0. And all the parts of the chair are painted with the default color, except for the cushion. All entities within a group or component that are the default color will inherit any color applied to that group or component. The cushion has been made into a group, and the group is painted with a texture. Double-click to edit the cushion group and notice that all the entities within the group are painted with the default color. This way, the designer can quickly paint the entire cushion by painting the group, not having to edit into the cushion to paint it. Now moving on in Part 2, we will look at a very common problem with many models in the 3D warehouse.